5 years ago, the entire nation, near the entire world, was put under lockdown. Not for an influenza-like illness, but for something far more dangerous. We did live through a pandemic, yes, but not for a virus. This was a pandemic of media manipulation, government propaganda, corporate cooperation and psychological warfare on humanity. And now, 5 years on, we have to ask, what have we actually learned from that? What I have learned is that they hold total control. That they can rewrite the rules of society overnight based on emergency powers that were never legally binding, yet still somehow dictated every aspect of our lives. This wasn't about public health. This was a global obedience test, a live experiment to see how quickly they could get people to comply, how easily neighbours could be turned against each other, and how rapidly fear could be weaponised into control. We saw friends reporting each other for breaking rules that changed by the week. We watched as key workers were exolated while others were shamed or discarded entirely. They restructured society into tiers of importance. They elevated some, silenced others, and broke apart the very fabric of community. They purposely divided us, masked versus unmasked, jabbed versus unjabbed, compliant versus defiant. While they preached about unity, they embedded division into every single thing that they did. And in the background, they passed protest laws that stripped away our fundamental human rights. They didn't just remove freedoms, they acted as though we had to earn them back. Every rule they introduced was just another move in a prolonged psychological game of gaslighting and coercion. Anyone who's ever been in some kind of controlling or abusive relationship noticed this very early on. They played the public like puppets. Eat out to help out 1 minute, locked inside again the next. Go out, spend money, support the economy, only to then be blamed for the next wave and punished with tighter restrictions. It wasn't public safety, it was a 3-year training programme in emotional abuse and compliance. All the while, real lives were being lost in the most horrific, inhumane ways. People died alone in hospitals without the comfort of final goodbyes. Family members were denied the right to sit beside their dying loved ones. Care homes were locked down like prisons. And behind the scenes, the government authorised blanket do not resuscitate orders without consent of family members, without discussion, sentencing tens of thousands of elderly people to death, for no reason, whilst adding those on to COVID numbers. Midazolam was pushed into the care system in bulk. Midazolam is a powerful sedative used to hasten the end. And those deaths were also added straight to the COVID death count. They murdered our elderly while we were told to protect the NHS. Protect Granny was ingrained in us by every system and the entire system that was being used to implement silent euthanasia. And while all this was happening, they did exactly what they liked. They had parties, they flew around the world, they sat shoulder to shoulder at wine and cheese gatherings. They laughed in our faces while we were told to stand on our doorsteps and clap. Behind the scenes, they handed out billion-pound contracts to their friends and donors. They made themselves richer than ever. Here's a fact for you. The largest surge in people becoming billionaires in UK history happened during the COVID years. Why do you think that is? While small businesses were shut down, families relied on food banks and mental health spiralled out of control, the elite class doubled their profits. They dangled their bounce-back loans in front of struggling business owners, knowing full well the repayment terms and interest rates would destroy them later. It wasn't support, it was bait. And as per usual, the banks cleaned up. Those contracts, many were awarded to companies with zero experience, just the right political connections. PPE deals worth millions vanished into thin air. Some of the kit never arrived, some of it was unusable, but the money was spent and no one was held accountable even to this day. They got away with daylight robbery, while the rest of the country struggled to breathe under the weight of restrictions. Test and Trace cost £37 billion of taxpayers' money, only to merely exist 3 years later. This was nothing short of money laundering. Then, let's not forget the damage done to our children, the most innocent victims of all. 2 years of stolen education, playground tape, Zoom classrooms, fear isolation, confusion, a spike in young mental health crisis, a rise in self-harm, suicide and eating disorders. They say it's for their safety, but nothing about that was safe. It was trauma inflicted by policy. This wasn't just incompetence, this was narcissistic, state-sanctioned abuse. It was calculated, it was deliberate, it was control. It was murder and genocide. We must not forget. We must not move on like they want us to. We must not let them rewrite the narrative, because next time, and there will be a next time, they'll be faster, more efficient and more ruthless. Let this be the lesson. Your government cannot be trusted. They will never be for the people. They will always be for themselves. They will use your empathy against you. They will use fear to control you. And they will smile while they do it. Never forget what they did and never forgive.